With me, we've got Danielle Sekula. Danielle, you're the IPM agent down in the Valley. You cover several counties, and greatly appreciate you taking the time to visit with us a little bit about what you're seeing in some of the fields down there, as well as kind of some of the things that you might think we should be looking for as our crops start to mature up here in Nueces County. I understand, I guess, over the weekend you had an opportunity to kind of drive through some of the area and kind of have an idea of what's going on as far as the maturity of our crops. But certainly, we're doing other things, so maybe didn't have a chance to get in any of the fields or anything like that. But as far as sorghum, could you maybe talk about some of the light aphid pressure that we've kind of seen in this area, maybe what you're seeing in the valley, and what you might think we should be looking for as we move into harvest?
Well, down here in the valley, we did have some good, some medium, I would say medium heavy pressure the first 2 weeks of May, I want to say. And everybody was spraying. A lot of people were spraying. We had quite a few fields that were hit up pretty bad, but I think they were non-resistant varieties. And but then certainly the fields that where they're using resistant tolerant varieties, we had some pockets of sugarcane aphids, but for the most part it held up pretty good. But we did get some high numbers of sugarcane aphids. Let's see, like the middle of May, basically. And 2 weeks ago, they were spraying pretty for at least a good week there. We had a lot of predators. We had a lot of let's see, what we call black aphids or blue, like the parasitism by that one little wasp, Aphelinus, whatever. But we also had it turns them blue, blackish, and then the other one was the tan mummies. So I saw a lot of that going on, and a lot of lacewings and ladybugs. But when the population took off, it wasn't enough to control it. So we did have a lot of guys go ahead and spray, at least once. Now what I'm seeing is a drastic decline in sugarcane aphids. Not just in sorghum, but also in cotton. We'll get to that later. But as I was driving through y'all's area, I did see sooty mold on like the edge of some fields that were already in like hard dough stage. So majority of our sorghum's already in hard dough stage. So we're pretty much, as soon as we got some good rain this weekend, so as soon as that dries, then we'll be harvesting. And so I don't see my guys having to spray before harvest. But in your area, I saw a lot of soft dough stage, or stuff barely getting into soft dough stage, but then I did see some hard dough stage, and I'm thinking you guys are probably a little ways off from harvesting as well. And what I'm thinking is we're going to see a second peak. I want to say mid to late June. So if you think you got some good pockets of sugarcane aphids in your sorghum fields, and you're going to be harvesting, the latter part of June, you might want to go ahead and just clean it up when you put out your glyphosate. You can add a half an ounce of sulfoxaflor, which is transformed, and I know that works pretty well in order to clean up the sugarcane aphids and then get ready for harvest time. But that might be something you might want to consider to avoid the stickiness. But in y'all's area, I had a student out of Michael Brewer, the research entomologist at his lab, come down, and he was looking for predators and sugarcane aphids in my area, and he kind of led me to believe that as far as populations in y'all's area, it seemed to have been light. He came down about a week ago or a week and a half ago.
And that's the message that I've kind of heard from growers and things, that they are in the fields, they have been around, but very limited, if any, spraying has really kind of occurred. And most growers here are selecting, hybrids that do have some tolerance, but we all know that even in some of these tolerant varieties that you will still see some light pressure. And so I guess, the concern is going into harvest, these light amounts of aphids as sorghum starts to dry down, can that, become a concern going into harvest with sticky grain and things like that?
It can if conditions are right. And certainly it's been very, well, with this rain that we've been getting and then with the heat and stuff, we can be looking at a surge in population again, like a higher peak. And since it was light over there in y'all's area at the beginning, we could have a higher infestation there towards the end, towards harvest, which seems to be the case in y'all's area. I know it's happened before, but yeah, it seems to happen right before harvest time. And so, again, like if there's a good enough amount of pockets of them, and uh, and you're getting close to harvest time, and if you're starting to see some of that glistening on the leaves and stuff like that, right before you go into burn down, you might as well go ahead and add a half an ounce of transform to your glyphosate and just kind of clean it up. And because I know that works. I know a lot of growers have used that prior to harvest. I believe as far as the residual, I think it's all right. That way you can avoid stickiness on your combine getting messed up and stuff like that.
Okay.
But,
any other insects in regards to grain sorghum that we should be
grain
looking out?
sorghum, we had limited headworm pressure. I don't know. I believe maybe in y'all's area it's a little bit more just because there's a lot more brush lines around. But we had a little bit of a few fields that needed to be sprayed for headworm pressure, but it wasn't too bad this year. And then right now the late season sorghum midge is really bad. So I know like last week and a half, midge has been sprayed for on any late flowering sorghum. So I think I saw like a couple of fields, but it seems like the majority of y'all stuff is in soft dough stage and then turning over into hard dough stage. So I think you guys are pretty much at the end there. Rice stink bugs, I saw a few of those this year, but nothing worthy of having the sprayer control. So that was good.
A lot of I guess promotion of heligen we saw this year in the area as we saw a little bit of that last year. Do you have much experience with that product and kind of?
Yes, I do. Well, I got to see it last year, and what I can say is that it does work. But you almost have to put it on as a preventative, like before you're even seeing the worms there and present. Basically, like boom, once it starts flowering, you got to put it on the heligen. I guess what I could say is in our area, it's kind of we might get headworms real bad, we might not. And so a lot of the growers like to wait, and if they see them, then they spray for them. If they don't see them, obviously they don't spray for them. And so last year, by the time we saw them and we sprayed for them, the product works. I mean, it killed them and stuff, but it's a slow kill. And you'd see those worms, like they were already getting pretty big, and you need to put the stuff on there when the worms are pretty small in size. Not even like half a centimeter in size is what they need to be, no more than that. And by the time we put it on, it was already like I want to say a good half an inch, or whatever, or more. And I mean, it killed them, but it was a slow process. Like you saw them, do a little bit of damage and stuff. And but I heard in y'all's area that headworms is something that y'all generally have issues with time and time again each year. And a lot of the growers know what fields or what areas are going to have heavy headworm pressure. And so I heard in y'all's area that it does work very well as far as putting it on preemptively, without waiting to see if you get it or not.
So I guess Prepathon is kind of still the go-to recommendation, or what are you recommending for headworm treatments?
For headworm treatments, generally Prepathon. That seems to be the go-to product for that. But this year, I mean, like I said, by the time we saw heavy headworm pressure, everything was already basically like 75% of the field would be in was already turned into hard dough stage, and we only had about 25% of the field in soft dough. So generally, a lot of growers won't. There wasn't a lot of need to spray for headworms. Is what I'm getting at in our area. So, but like I said, there was a few fields that needed to be sprayed, and that was used. And the Heligen product was tried out on the station, so I'll have to get with them and see what they thought about it this year.
Okay. So, I mean, with the cost of that product compared to like a Heligen product, you know, it seems like, you know, there may be some potential upside, especially in our area where, you know, you're likely going to have some pressure in certain fields, going ahead and treating those acres early. I know that kind of goes against IPM principles, though, doesn't it? Whenever you don't see the pressure.
Yeah, but if you know it's going to be there, then by all means, you'll probably be saving yourself money if you get it out there, and in order to not see that heavy pressure. So.
Okay.